Hello, how are you all doing? Welcome to a new Rockabot class. Alright, today we're going to look at how to use. Before, we saw how to read XML files using HTTP connection. Now we're going to see how to read XML files and code using the ReadXML module. Okay, we're going to do two tests. Take a look here. There are several variables here. We have a variable box called XML file test, where we have a prepared file, which I'll show you in a moment, an XML file, and then another test with the XML code, meaning by directly entering the XML code and, well, with its respective data. And here we have two variables that will be shared, meaning they'll be repeated in both for the tests we're going to do. Alright, so taking the ReadXML module, which I'll show you now, I have it here. We have several commands. We're going to use these two. These three are for invoices. Notice that the first one refers to invoices from Chile. The second command refers to invoices from Colombia, and the third to invoices from Ecuador. Of course, we're always going to work with it in the same way. Now I'm going to give you a general example so you get the idea and see how to work with XML files or XML code. Alright, here we have some code. We're going to use specifically the command xml.toad dictionary where you put the code. See? I'll show you now. This is the code. Alright, here I have visual code. This is the code so you can see it clearly. It's an XML code that has exactly two warehouse products where we need to get the price and the product name. Alright, so let's run it and see what result we get. Let's test XML code, and this is the result we got. So, since we have a dictionary, what I'm going to have to do is first position myself here and then also here to get this list, right? Of elements. So, let's do that. Of the variable, we're going to place ourselves inside. Oh, I forgot. It's warehouse first and product second. So, single quote, warehouse, close single quote, close bracket, open bracket, single quote, warehouse, product, close single quote. And we're going to indicate this in data. Alright, let's run it and see what we have in data. In data, we directly have the list. Therefore, since we have a list here, what we can do is use a for loop directly, which is what we're going to do. We'll set up the for loop to go through the variable data, which is a list, and put that value precisely into value. Let's see what happens when we do that. Let's see what happens if we display the value variable on the screen using an alert. I'm not going to run this for now, so I'll just run the for loop. And look, on the first run it shows me this, and on the second run it shows me the other thing. So what I need to do now, I don't need any more, is basically set the variable with the information. That is, from value, I want to get look, let's see. From value, what are we going to get? The name and the price. So let's put single quotes around name. And this will be stored in product. The same goes for value. Always put quotes around price, right? That's how it was written. Always remember to pay attention to the names being used. Here we're going to put a price, and notice if I run this and run this, what I'll get is the price that's here and the product that's here, the pants. Alright, so I'm going to put together a message so it can be displayed on the screen. Done! I'm going to use L or La because it could also be camiseta. Product, right? Variable product has a price of variable price, right? So look, if I run the for loop, we'll get the following. The t-shirt has a price of 19.99. If you run it again, it says LO la pantalon, that is, the pants have a price of 39.99. And that's how we can work with information from an XML code, manipulate the data to get the relevant information, and then do whatever we want with it. In this case, it's to show a message on the screen with an alert, just as an example. Remember that alerts are not used in production robots, because again, we're going over this in case you don't remember. When I have an alert, for the robot to continue, I have to manually click accept. If I don't click accept, the bot stays paused. That's why it's not used in production robots, because if the robot runs at 5 in the morning on a Sunday, no one is going to be at 5 in the morning in front of the screen waiting for the alert button to pop up. So that's why alerts aren't used in production robots. Alright, let's move on to the next example. The next example is the file. Notice that here I directly assign a file, and that result goes into the variable residential file. The file contains this. The file contains books, where there are 3 books, right? With the title, the author, and the price. So what I want to do is basically get the title, the author, and the price to display a message on the screen. So I do the same thing I did before. So res.file, this is what I'm going to do, which is what I want to get with res.file. Basically, first we're going to run it, right? We run it, and in res.file we have the following. So we have books that we need to access here, and book, which we also need to access here, and get that subsequent result, which is also a list of products so we can work with them. So let's do that. Brace, books. I close the single quote, bracket again, now book in singular. And this is what I'm going to, I'll save it in datos underscore file, in this case. So we're going to have the following. If we check datos underscore file, we'll have exactly the list I want to loop through. So that's the list I'm going to give to the for loop to go through, to iterate over it and store that variable in Vela. So let's do the same little test we did before. Let's clone this because I'll need it later. Let's have it show me Vela to do a quick test. And if I run the for loop, I'll get, there it is, the first element of the list, title, author, and price. If I click accept, it's going to go back. It's going to run the robot, the for loop in this case. Title, The Little Prince, author, Saint-Exupéry, and the price. And the same with the third one, Fahrenheit, Bradbury, $14. Good. So now I have it correct. What I'm going to do now is the same thing I did before. Notice that the procedure repeats. So what I want to get is the title, the author, and the price. So let's go for it. So I say from value I want to get title, right? Single quote, title, bracket, and I save this in title. I do the same with value, bracket, single quote, author, and I save it in author. And finally, with the price, value, quotes, bracket, single quote, now yes, price. I close the single quote, bracket, and save it in price. So if I run this, look, I'll have all 3, title, Fahrenheit, author, Bradbury, and the price. So, I want to display on the screen, I'm going to show my next message to do a little test. The book, title, right? The variable title by the author, has a price of price. Let's put dollars. OK. So, if I run the for loop to go through the first one, it will display the message and say, the book 1984 by the author George Orwell has a price of $15.99. The same with the second run. The book The Little Prince by the author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry has a price of $12.50. And the same with the third one. The book Fahrenheit 451 by the author Ray Bradbury has a price of $14. Alright, this has been today's example. How to work with XML, how to transform them into dictionaries, and how to work with those dictionaries. I hope this is helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next class. Best regards.